Hello everybody, my name is Joanna, I'm the Polish folk witch, and this is my first video in 2025, so I just want to open this up by saying Happy New Year to everybody. And I think this video is going to be useful for those of you who like to plan your stuff in advance when it comes to your practice. I want to show you how I go about it, because I believe that if we are a tiny bit organized when it comes to planning our dates and knowing when things fall on the folkloric calendar, then it makes our lives so much easier than winging it, actually. So I'm speaking from my own perspective, of course. I will be honest with you. If I didn't have my planners and journals, I would be pretty lost in life in general, because I tend to be chaotic like that. So I do have a structure around this that really helps me make sure that I remember when things are happening, so that I can decide in advance if I want to do something for a particular celebration or date, what kind of seasonal observations are important to me. This is of course also related to gardening, planning what kind of plants I want to cultivate, when to forage for certain plants or herbs, as well as, all of the other seasonal stuff that comes with, being a part of your local ecosystem and nature. Before I show you all of the stuff that I actually use, I'm just going to briefly explain everything so that you know what you are in for and what has been working for me. As you're watching this, please make sure that you're only taking the bits that you think might help you and just leave the rest. There's no need to do everything, and I find that building a structure and habits around planning and seasonal observances and stuff like that, it does take some time to ease yourself into it. There's no point doing everything at once, because you're just going to get overwhelmed and drop out of it pretty fast, and that's not the point at all. So this is a routine, I guess, that has been working for me over the years. It's tried and true. I'm used to it. So it's just very ingrained in me, and at this point I just want to put it out there so you know how this realistically works for me, and not to present this in a way like, I'm this super organized person and on top of everything, because that's literally the opposite of what I actually am. What I usually do is that I have a traveler's notebook planner with monthly layouts. I will show you everything, but that's where I like to have this condensed information about everything that I want to make sure that I remember. When I get a new insert with my dates for my planner, I will mark specific things, and those usually include the lunar cycles. So I will just mark every full moon, every new moon, every month. I will write down all of the, seasonal stuff like equinoxes and solstices. I will also mark down every movable date in the Polish folkloric calendar that I observe, because every year, if you have been reading my series of articles on the Polish folkloric year, you will know that many of those dates are actually movable and kind of dependent on the lunar cycles as well as the dates of feast days of saints with whom I might do something on the date. And I don't personally work with saints in the kind of folk Catholic way at all. I treat those dates more like correspondences for things that folks would traditionally do in folkloric practice on those dates. And that's where I like to mark every time I get a planner like this. And I don't usually do the whole year in advance. I like to go a few months at a time so I don't get overwhelmed. So that's how I usually go about that. That's my base, because I carry this planner on me most often. And then other than that, I also have kind of an almanac style planner that I buy every year. It's very simple and it contains all of the most important information that has to do with the cycles of nature where I live. And I will show you everything again, but I just want to stress this right now that I think because nowadays you have plenty and plenty of almanacs and planners and date books and calendars that are kind of witchy themed, and they do contain some of that information as well. But personally, honestly, and I'm saying this after many years of trying and seeing that they are basically useless, is what I'm trying to say. And the reason why I'm saying this is because many of those are focused on rather eclectic observances that don't occur necessarily where you live. For example, many of those that are published by Llewellyn would be very like America focused and only in a particular part of America. So if you live somewhere else, that stuff might not even apply to you, right? So for me, that's useless. Even the dates of, the lunar cycles are different because of the time zone difference where I live. So if you are in Europe, most of those will be useless for you. So personally, I avoid any kind of witchy themed planners and almanacs and date books and calendars and so on, because I just find that they don't actually work if the way you observe the nature around you and the cycles around you is a tiny bit more in depth, and if you are a gardener or farmer or forager or an herbalist, that type of person, these will not be of much use to you, I think. So I highly, highly recommend to try and find something that's actually as local to where you live as possible. That alone is such a rich resource of information for your folkloric practice. If you are a folk witch, definitely go for something local. And other than a book like that, I also have a kind of planner / calendar that includes dates for foraging specific herbs and plants for my herbalist practice, because I find that sometimes I forget all of the plants that might be, ready to be foraged in a particular month or season. So it's nice to be able to just quickly reference that, have everything in one place, so that my work is faster, easier, and I'm less concerned with the planning itself, and I can actually do stuff. It's kind of a waste of time for me personally to spend more time planning than doing the things that I'm planning, if that makes sense. I am very action oriented. I am very practical in that sense. So I like my stuff to just be ready to reference, very simple, and practical. If you would like to start doing something like this to make your practice easier for you, whatever you do, but I'm assuming that this will apply to anybody who's a folk practitioner, basically. I would start, especially if you are practicing Slavic or Polish folk traditions, I would start by going to the Patreon and actually going to the collection with the Polish folkloric year. This is like a collection of all of the articles that list all of the traditions throughout the entire Polish folkloric year. Go through it. At the beginning of each of those articles, you have like a calendarium portion where you have all of the dates of the celebrations, the feast days, all of the movable dates as well, the equinoxes, all of that stuff. And just take those dates and write them down in your planner. And you don't need to do anything else, but just have them jotted down somewhere. If you are the kind of person who forgets to reference your own planners, then I would also suggest to add that to your phone calendar, so a notification pops up for you. And that can help you to remember to go back to those articles and reference those dates when you want to practice something during a specific month or season. It just makes things so much easier, right? And other than that, I would also suggest having some kind of almanac or planner that's very much focused on the local cycles of nature, local ecology, harvesting dates and stuff like that. This is something that makes your practice so much easier if you want to incorporate working with plants or just going out there and actually interacting with the ecology around you, right? Okay, so enough of me talking. Let me show you what I actually have and what it looks like. So you've probably seen this around because I've shown it in a couple videos in the past. I kind of updated my layout and setup and everything to better accommodate my needs. So I got a bigger one actually. But yeah, this is how it works. So I just want to show you the calendar portion of this because I also have, you know, like a actual journal here and stuff for creative planning, content planning and stuff like that. But the calendar, I think, is the most important here and what we're actually talking about. So I get these inserts. They are very small and they just have like these monthly layouts and that's it. Okay, this is very, very simple and what I actually reference the most. So I started this one in September, but that doesn't matter as much. I just want to show you what I actually do here. So let's look at January. It's still fairly empty to be honest, but this is what it looks like. I just have like, because January is not that busy when it comes to Polish folkloric celebrations and stuff like that. I only have the Trzech Króli, so the three Magi on the 6th of January mentioned here, as well as the full moon. I just, you know, do like a big open circle that's empty inside for the full moon, and the new moon, which is a circle that's colored inside to indicate the, you know, the new moon. And that's it. But maybe let's look at February. It's a bit more busy. So again, the full moon, the new moon, and then we have, you know, stuff like Gromnica on the 2nd of February. Then we have a Saint Blaise feast day, Saint Agatha's feast day, Saint Valentine's feast day, and Tłusty Czwartek. Tłusty Czwartek is Fat Thursday. This is an example of a movable holiday from the Polish folkloric year. So I just have all of those listed here. Same for March. We have Zapusty, which is kind of the last, like the summary of the Polish carnival period. And then on the 5th of March, we have Środa Popielcowa, Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent. Then we again have some full moon, new moon, and both of these are actually with eclipses. This is going to be a moon eclipse. This is going to be a sun eclipse. And I also have the spring equinox marked as well because it's a movable date. I want to know which day it's exactly falling on, right? As well as, you know, Matki Boskiej Roztwornej, Our Lady of Openings, which is another, you know, folkloric celebration of Our Lady that I celebrate. And this is kind of how it goes, you know, for April and so on, right? So this is very simple. And this is like the first place I will always reference every month. So I have everything at a glance. It's very easy to, you know, see what's actually going to be happening so I can plan stuff in advance, right? Very, very straightforward. So now when it comes to this kind of almanac style planner, I'm just going to walk you through it very quickly. I know it's in Polish. Those of you who speak Polish or who, you know, are in Poland, I highly recommend this one in particular. But if you obviously don't speak Polish, you might want to look for something that has similar features if you would like to try something like this, because I find it's really, really helpful. So the way this works, it kind of explains all of the rules that you would normally apply to seasonal observances. So it talks about the observances of the solar and the lunar rhythms, like kind of in which order they should be respected for having the best results. It mentions that, you know, we always look at the solar cycles first, and they need to be first and foremost helpful for what you want to do. And then in the second order, you look at the lunar phases, right? So this explains all of that stuff, as well as it explains, you know, the quarters of the moon phases on which you will forage for particular parts like leaves, fruits, roots, as well as the period where the soil should be resting, actually. So it explains all of that stuff. I find it's really, really, really helpful. It also mentions like how to observe weather for best results. Then it moves on to every month. For every month, I get like a quick rundown of the most important information. So it will talk about what you want to traditionally do on every month in terms of like foraging plants or planting plants, the folk traditions of the month, what was traditionally observed, some agrarian folk sayings that predict or help you predict the kind of weather that you can expect in a certain month, stuff like that, right? So it's really helpful in that sense. Then you move on to like a calendar that shows you what you can do on certain dates. So it mentions when is the full moon, when is the dark moon, each quarter of the moon, and what you're supposed to harvest or not harvest on a specific quarter. It tells you the times of dusk and dawn, tells you what you're supposed to forage for, as well as the dates of any like folk celebrations or name dates and so on. And for each month, it kind of helps you with the folk meteorology, as it calls it, again with predicting the weather patterns and so on. It's really cool stuff. And then we go to the next month and it's kind of the same stuff. So it gives you some of the most important kind of information about what you're supposed to be expecting in terms of weather, what is traditionally done in terms of working with the land, you know, farming, planting, foraging, stuff like that, right? And that's how it kind of continues for the entire year. It also shows you kind of like a more in-depth rundown for the quarters of the moon in terms of timing your work in the garden or in the field. So it tells you like there's some plants and veggies and so on listed here. It tells you when you're supposed to sow the seeds or when you're supposed to plant it and when you're supposed to gather the plant, harvest it, right? And at the end, I think this is really cool. It tells you about the foretelling of the weather, and it actually gives you a summary of the previous years and what came true from the foretelling of weather in those years. And then it tells you about the foretelling of weather for the year ahead as well. So it's really cool and very kind of folkloric style, you know. I recommend looking for something like this in particular. This is, you know, honest work, no kind of esoteric stuff around it, just straight to the point, folk wisdom for working with the land. And this is so helpful for witches, honestly. Like, obviously, this doesn't say it's for witches, but, you know, all the signs are there, basically. And then lastly, I have my calendar for foraging plants. So how it works is that for every month, it has, you know, like a planner like this. And it shows you all of the moon phases as well as all of the celebrations and stuff like that. But up here, it shows all of the plants that are good to harvest or work with during this particular month, okay? So after this planner portion, I actually get like a explanation, I guess, for every plant that was mentioned at the previous page, and where you can find it, when you should harvest it, which parts you should harvest when, because sometimes you want to harvest fruits in a different month and leaves in a different month, obviously. So all of the plants that are mentioned here are obviously plants that actually grow where I live, so I don't have to worry that I buy a planter like this. And it's talking about plants that grow in a different climate or in a different geographical location, because that's useless, right? And then it just moves on to actually having like a planner for myself where I can plan stuff, write down, what I want to do, whatever, or just keep it empty. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually use this because I have my traveler's notebook, which I use for purposes like this, but it's still pretty cool, I think. And if you don't have multiple planners like myself, I think having something like this alone could be very, very helpful. So this is all of the stuff that I use to plan my folkloric practice, as well as my gardening, my foraging, and preparations when it comes to plants, herbs, and so on. And that's it. This is more than enough for me. And of course, just to be realistic here, it's not like I do all of the things every month. I have them here so that I can reference them, but it's always up for me to decide what I want to do, if this is a good month to celebrate specific things or not, which plants do I want to work with, what do I need right now, what are my energy levels, So each month I decide on the go what's actually going to be part of my practice. It's not like this is a chore. It's not supposed to be a chore. In the witchcraft circles, what is really pushed is to, find ways to include more and do more and be more productive. I think that's kind of useless in a way, because you're supposed to be working with all of those natural cycles and to be an active part of the ecology around you. And by doing so, you need to also recognize the internal cycles, where you are in life at a certain point in the year, which of those cycles are best to be worked with to have a good life, to have a wholesome life, and to be able to also contribute to the ecology and the community around you in ways that are actually meaningful and not, something that's done just because somebody else says that you need to do it to be a real witch or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just wanted to start the year off with this to inspire folks, to show you how I go about these things and what's been really helpful for me, tried and true, for planning my folkloric practice in the year. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you around soon. Bye.